Let's go.
Dr. Rosie Milligan, one of the most sought-after speakers on the circuit today. Her live internet talk show, Express Yourself, is the most provocative, thought-provoking, and talked-about radio show on the internet. There's no holds barred, and Dr. Milligan puts the B in bold. She brings it every Tuesday live at 10 a.m. Pacific and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Dr. Rosie has been proclaimed the most provocative female writer of the century. Her books include Satisfying the Black Man and Black Woman Sexually Made Simple, Why Black Men Choose White Women, and the book Nigga Please. These books have raised eyebrows across the country. She has authored 21 books and published 350 titles for authors nationwide. Check Dr. Rosie out at drrosie.com for her books, articles, and archives of her internet talk show. Sit at the feet of wisdom. Dr. Milligan is indeed a timekeeper and scorekeeper. She is the clock, calendar, and almanac for Black America. You need to hear her.
Well, good morning, top of the morning in sunny California. You're listening to the Express Yourself Hour. I am your host, Dr. Rosie Milligan, coming to you live with nothing but straight talk. Yeah, that's what I said. You know how we do it around here. Nothing but straight talk. Well, my co-hosts, I have two wonderful co-hosts. I believe they're on with me today. That is Mr. Keith Swanson. You know, he's the AI man. You guys been looking for him for a long time. But you know how AI is. They can disappear and come back. So if he's on, he's going to chime in. If not, you know what? He'll be joining us later. So AI man, are you on? If so, say, hey. All right. So that means that he's coming on. We also have Miss Shawannah Bordenave. She's my other co-host. She's the real estate guru. She buys houses, she sells houses, she flips houses. She does everything that you can do to a house. So if you're interested in anything has to do with the house, then she is the one that you want to call. That's Shawannah Bordenave. Shawannah Bordenave. If you're connected with us, say hey. So we're going to give her a minute. You know, she's always out selling houses and doing things. And many times she join us later for the show. But you guys, we have a great show for you today. We have a very timely show for you today. And I am so excited to have the guest that we have here today, folks. You all should know her now because she's been on my show many times as we talk about Proposition 19, that land grab, that thing that's causing a lot of people to lose their homes about now with the tax increase and going up to market value. Folks, we have a lot that we need to accomplish. But today, we are going to take a close-up look at how Prop 33 in the 2024 election will impact tenants and landlords. And we're also going to talk about the other propositions that Susan will discuss with us today, because there's so much taking place that's really going to impact what's taking place now with real estate and our way of living and our means for a long time. You know, as people right now, everybody's focused on the presidential election. That's great. That's fine. You know, it's worth focusing on. But I'm telling you right now, what you need to focus on is what's going on in your backyard. And that's what people tend to forget. They're not reading these propositions. That's what happened when they half-read Prop 19. Folks, we cannot make that same mistake again. Never, ever again. Because it would set you back so far, and it's going to be harmful for your children and your children's children. So we cannot repeat. We cannot repeat what happened in the election before. So I'm really happy to have Ms. Susan Shelly with us today, and she's the Vice President of Communication for the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, California's most influential taxpayer advocacy group. She's also a columnist and editorial writer for the Southern California News Group and 11 daily papers. Susan is a frequent guest on Southern California radio and TV news and interview shows and co-host of the Howard Jarvis Podcast for KABC. Good morning, Miss Susan Shelly. How are you?
Good morning, Dr. Rosie. I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, I am so happy that you're here, and I know we're going to talk about, folks, we have a lot we have to package into this, so what I suggest you do right now is get on the phone, email, text, however you need to do it. You need to call your family, your friends. This is critical information that's being handed out today. We are facing some issues that can impact you, your children, and your children's future. This election is a very important election, but when I hear, Susan, people talk about how important it is, they're talking about the importance between two candidates, who they want to win, but we have more at stake than who's going to be in the White House. I just want to say that again. We have more at stake than what's going to be and who's going to be in the White House. Then I have to ask you a question. What's taking place at your house? What's going to happen at your house? Talk to me, Miss Susan.
Well, what's happening in California is that, once again, your ballot is a recipe for raising your taxes. And this is a recipe that's going to poison California if we don't stop it. We cannot keep doing this where we keep raising taxes. And there is something on the ballot that is so dangerous. It's Proposition 5. And what it does is make it easier to raise taxes. Because currently it takes a 2/3 vote of the people to put bonds on the ballot. Bonds are a way that governments borrow money and go into debt for 30 years. And in order to do that, the Constitution has required, since 1879, by the way, the Constitution has required a 2/3 vote to go into debt at the local level because it's very burdensome. And you want to make sure that people are really on board with what you're borrowing it for, how much you're borrowing, and how much it's going to cost everybody for 30 years. Well, Prop 5 would change that. So instead of that 2/3 vote, which protects taxpayers from recklessness, it would drop to just 55%. And that means a lot more debt will happen, and a lot more governments will be reckless. And every time one of those bonds passes, there's more charges added to property tax bills. So if you own a home or any kind of property, you will see that voted indebtedness line, and below it all these charges for all these bonds that have passed for the last 30 years. And if Prop 5 passes, there will be more of those after every election. And we have to stop that from happening. It's a turbo engine to raise taxes. And of course, property taxes, as you know, that it's not just homeowners who pay that. It also winds up on renters because it's the apartment buildings are taxed, and then that comes through as higher rents. And it winds up in consumer prices because business properties are taxed higher, and then that comes through as higher prices to the consumer. So it raises the cost of housing, raises the cost of living, makes it easier to raise taxes after every election, and we have to stop it. So no on Proposition 5.
So you're saying if this passed, then every election, then it will continue to do that?
Exactly, and the reason for that is because this is a mechanism that allows all of these different government entities to put new debt on the ballot for voter approval. So a transit agency that wants a bailout could borrow money. They could put bonds on the ballot, and they could name it something like, "This will reduce traffic." They can name it that. And it's debt to bail out the transit system because people aren't riding it in the numbers that they need for making it solvent, making it run in the black. Imagine this. Imagine if the bullet train was local, they could put more bonds on the ballot every time to keep borrowing money for the bullet train. So you could have like a local kind of project exactly like that, and they could keep borrowing money. So a transit agency could do it, a city could do it, a county, a water district, even a regional association of governments, which is a relatively new creation. They could vote. They have like a board of directors, and they could vote to put you into debt and put more charges on the property tax bill. And it has to go on the ballot, but then instead of a 2/3 vote, it would only need 55%, and many more of them would pass. And you would see them on every ballot. And the way this works is they won't go to the ballot for anything unpopular. They won't say we need more money for pensions or pay raises, and that's why we want to raise your taxes. No, they'll say, well, we've got money for pensions and pay raises. What we need is money for fire stations. We don't have enough money for fire stations. And that's what they'll put on the ballot, and they'll scare everybody into thinking that if you don't raise taxes, your house is going to burn down and no one will come. Well, that's just bad management by the government, and we shouldn't be doing something that incentivizes that, which is what Prop 5 does. So no on Prop 5.
Okay, because if it passed, then we have just locked in. We're giving them privilege to come back every year and continue this cycle. I hope that's not what you said. If that's what you said, Susan.
That's exactly what it would do. It would allow all these different government agencies to put things on the ballot that borrow money and are paid for on property tax bills, and they would pass more easily. So essentially what it does is it makes it easier to raise taxes, and everybody ends up paying more. It raises the cost of living in California, and it's just a disastrous proposal. So we should keep what we had. You know, this goes back to the gold rush era, this argument. In the gold rush era, our first state constitution in 1849, which was handwritten on parchment, said that the legislature must restrict the ability of cities to go into debt in order to prevent abuses. 1849. And then in 1879, that was formalized into this 2/3 vote requirement for new debt at the local level. And now this legislature thinks it knows better, and it wants to cut it down to 55% instead of 2/3, which just makes it much, much easier to pass these bonds and go into debt. And, you know, they'll write a pretty ballot label, and they'll send out an informational mailer about how wonderful it's going to be. And it makes it much easier to go into debt to fool the voters into raising their own taxes.
Wow. And taxpayers need to know already every year that the county tax assessors are raising tax a certain percentage. Mm-hmm. Isn't that right, Susan?
That's right. Well, as with inflation, your property tax assessment will go up 2% a year anyway. It doesn't go up more than that because of Proposition 13, which passed in 1978. And the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association was created to pass that and to protect it from what we knew would be, obviously, the attacks of local governments. And here's the biggest attack we've seen, going after a protection that's in Prop 13 as well as in the original Constitution, which is that 2/3 vote requirement to raise your taxes. And this is really important because it doesn't look like it's a tax increase, but that's because it's an engine for tax increases. And in the future, every local government will be putting something on the ballot in every election, and your taxes will end up going up every time they pass.
That is really something to think about. You're already looking at an increase on your annual tax of 2%. So say your tax is already $10,000. And now we're talking about possibility of having another tax added on to that, coupled with the fact how people are struggling and hurting already behind Proposition 19, which increased people's tax, brought it to market value if they died and their child did not move into the house. Susan, I can't even fathom any idea of anybody, any agency thinking about with the economy, with where we are today, how can you even fix it in your mind to try to add more tax to people's homes when we're already facing the greatest homeless crisis ever in history? Who does this? Who comes up with this idea?
Oh, you were exactly right. Well, this came from the state legislature. It was Cecilia Aguilar Curry who introduced this, and originally it was going to make not just bond debt easier to pass, it was going to make local taxes easier to pass, like sales taxes and extra parcel taxes on your property and utility taxes and hotel taxes, and it was going to make all of them 55% instead of 2/3, which is disturbing enough, but it was polling very badly, and so they ran back to the legislature and they passed changes to the proposal. So now it's on the ballot. It would affect bond debt because they think people don't understand what bond debt is. Well, guess what? Bond debt is borrowing on the credit card of your local government, and it's paid back on property tax bills. And that, I think everybody does understand that, because it says so right on the ballot that it's going to be paid for with higher property taxes. And it's not, interestingly, Proposition 5 is not polling very well. There was a poll that came out yesterday that said only 43% of likely voters would support it, which is, it's music to my ears, because it means that people do understand that these tricks, these schemes to fool the voters into raising their own taxes will fail when they're exposed. And I think that's very encouraging.
Well, you know what I'm finding, that I look at the quick reference guide that they're sending to people's home for the general election. There are so many things in here where you may say yes, but it looks like it's positive, when no is really the way you should go. So I want people to really pay close attention when you get these reference guides, when they are tricking you with the no and tricking you with the yes. What do you think about that, Susan? Have you found that to be true?
Oh, yes, you're 100% right. And I always tell people to go to the Howard Jarvis website and see the ballot recommendations there, because whether you agree or not, at least it's clear. So hjta.org is the website, hjta.org, and you just push that banner button that says ballot recommendations or election information, and you'll get all of the recommendations explained on the Howard Jarvis website and how they affect taxpayers. So Prop 5 is the one to worry about, because even though this is a statewide proposition, it enables local mischief. And then the local mischief starts immediately, because there are things that are on the ballot throughout the state that require a 2/3 vote, but if Proposition 5 passes in the same election, they automatically change to 55%. So even if it says it needs a 2/3 vote on your ballot, it will pass with 55% if Prop 5 passes. That's how sneaky this is. It has to be stopped. We have to send a message to Sacramento that we're not going to stand for this. These tricks to raise taxes, we're not going to stand for it. People are paying enough. We pay high electricity bills and high water bills and high grocery bills and high insurance bills, and they want to raise taxes. It's unacceptable.
It is definitely at a critical time, Susan, because so many people now cannot afford to have insurance, and it's required by law that they have it for their automobiles. You have a lot of companies who are pulling out of the state of California. Even many people have called me regarding their insurance on their commercial building, where that's being canceled. I mean, what are they trying to do, and what are we not doing? Let me put it like that. What are we not doing? We know what they are trying to do, but folks, it's not just about you. This stuff goes on to the next generation. This put the yoke around your offspring necks. If we don't stop this madness now, we are harming our children and our children's children.
You're so right. And there are two other measures on the statewide ballot that would just sink the state further into debt for no good reason, and that's Prop 2 and Prop 4, total of, hang on to something, $20 billion in new debt at the state level. We currently have $79 billion of outstanding debt. This is bond debt, where we borrowed money from investors and we have to pay it back, principal and interest, ahead of current needs. We already have $8 billion a year that we have to pay out of the state treasury to investors for old debt that we have. And this would be $20 billion more debt in Prop 2 and Prop 4 combined. And then we would owe another almost $1 billion a year on top of that $8 billion. We'd owe another $1 billion in principal and interest before we pay for current needs. So when you say it's putting a yoke on the next generation, you're exactly right. Everything that the next generation needs, even that the next year needs, it has to wait until we first pay the investors. That always has to come first. You have to pay back Wall Street for the borrowed money before you can pay for fixing the roads and health care and everything else that the state government needs to do. So this is a really serious decision that the voters are making. And just because you read the ballot and it looks all candy-coated and wonderful and sweet, it's not. It's a giant credit card bill that is going to sink people for years to come.
Wow, that is, well, I am suggesting, well, in fact, I'm almost demanding that you go to hjta.org for your recommendation regarding these propositions. 'Cause they have always been there to protect our housing, to keep taxes, to make it where people could stay in their homes and not be taxed out of it, to make it so that the next generation could inherit what you have worked hard for. They have always, that's what the Howard Jarvis Association is about. So if I were going to look toward anybody, any organization, as to giving me the real deal about how I should vote and the real clear defined, because in these guides it is so confusing that you think you're saying yes when you really voted no. So I'm asking you to tell your family, your friends, because people wonder, how do I vote? How does this work? Go to that website, and I want to keep repeating it throughout this show. Don't wait. Go today. Email your family. Tell people you know if they really want to understand what's going on. That's not confusing. That's not designed to make you be confused. Go to H like house, J like John, T like Tom, A like Apple.org for your recommendation, because it is important that you are not taxed out of your house and you are not taxed out of what you can leave for your children. Now, you can reach us here, and we're going to talk about a few other propositions. Just hold tight. You can reach us here at 310-928-7733. That's 310-928-7733. If you're at work and you don't want them to hear what you're saying and talking about, you know how I go. You can email us here at innerlightradio@yahoo.com. That's innerlightradio@yahoo.com. That's INNER, Inner Light Radio. Susan, what is that other proposition you said 4?
Yes, Proposition 2 is $10 billion of bonds for school facilities, which is not necessary, and Proposition 4 is $10 billion of borrowing for climate programs, which is not necessary. In fact, most of this stuff was cut from the budget by the legislature when we went into a deficit because they didn't think it was that important. It was a lot of favors for a lot of groups that supported these different politicians, and they didn't think it was important, so now they want to borrow the money to do these programs that weren't that important, which is just crazy, because to go into debt for 30 or 40 years to pay for things like pop-up tents at farmers markets, which is really in the bond. Pop-up tents for farmers markets. 40 years of debt at these interest rates for pop-up tents? Does that make any sense? And there's $475 million in it to develop a wind energy program, offshore wind power, but there's no project, there's no approval. It's in international waters if they do it, and it probably could never be built. What are they going to spend $475 million on? A bunch of reports telling us it's behind schedule. This is crazy to put that on a credit card. It's just crazy. So no on Prop 4, no on Prop 2.
Okay, you guys heard it from the expert. No on Prop 4, no on Prop 2, and the other prop and on 5. Where are we going with that one, Susan, on 5?
We're no on Prop 5. That's the one that makes it easier to raise taxes. No on Prop 5.
That's definitely no. That's definitely no. Now, was there another issue that has to do with real estate and impacting us in that way that's on the ballot this time, Susan?
Yes, there is. There's Measure US. Measure US is a property tax increase for LAUSD. And currently, if you own a home or any property in the LAUSD district, you're paying $128 a year per $100,000 of value of your home, assessed value of your home on your tax bill. So it's already at $128. And typically they add a bond and it adds $2, it adds $5. Well, this one will add another $25 to that $128 per year per $100,000 of value of your home. So if you do the math on that, you're paying hundreds of dollars, and if you do the math over the 30 years of these bonds, you're paying thousands of dollars. And what is it for? Well, they want to do some energy efficiency improvements, and they're promising once again they're going to take the asbestos out of the walls. You know what, Dr. Rosie, if there's still asbestos in the walls of the schools after all the billions of dollars we've spent, who's going to prison for it? What's it still doing there? And where are the priorities for these construction projects that they're doing? It's just badly managed. LAUSD is badly managed, and they want to raise everybody's taxes to cover for it. And that's just terrible. To raise everybody another $100, $200, $500 a year, it's just unreasonable. And once again, this goes up every year as your assessed value goes up, this goes up. And it's just unfair to raise people's property taxes again and again for their own incompetence. So that's a local measure. If you live in the LAUSD district, that's Measure US, as in Unified Schools. And utter insanity, I think, is what it is. So no on Measure US. And the other one, which affects everybody, property owners or not, is Measure A. That raises the sales tax in LA County. And this is really an awful one, because this is trying to get through a loophole of making it easier to raise taxes if it's a so-called citizens initiative tax increase. So where normally this would require a 2/3 vote to raise the sales tax, these people are saying it can get through with just 50% plus one vote. And what this does is it takes a temporary sales tax for homelessness programs, doubles it, and makes it permanent. And so it will raise the permanent.
Okay.
Permanent. This was a temporary sales tax. It was a quarter cent. It passed in 2017. It was Measure H. And it got a 2/3 vote because everybody told us that this was going to solve homelessness. Well, at the time, there were 45,000 or 46,000 people in the point-in-time count who were on the streets, 46,000 homeless people in LA County. After 7 years of paying this tax and having these programs, it's 75,000 people. So it's much worse than it was before the tax. And what are they doing? They're trying to entrench all of these programs from all of these nonprofit organizations that are running them with their highly paid executives. And they're trying to make this the permanent solution for homelessness, where they just raise the sales tax permanently in LA County for these same programs. That is the wrong approach. The right approach is to say, well, this didn't work. Let's put it back under the county and hold people accountable who are elected for whether these programs are working or not. We're already paying for a whole bureaucracy of mental health and housing and all different kinds of departments in the county government, and those people aren't doing anything. They're handing it all off to these nonprofits like United Way of Greater Los Angeles to run our homelessness programs, and it's not working. So what Measure A does is it doubles that tax that's supporting this bureaucracy. It doubles it, it makes it permanent, it entrenches us with this failed system, this broken system, and makes it permanent. And so no on Measure A. We should not have a higher sales tax. It's already over 10% in many places. And this is just the wrong approach. So no on Measure A.
That's interesting, Susan. I believe it was in 2017 when it was assessed. Anytime you recorded a deed for a property that you did not live in, they add an additional $75. And that was because they wanted to be a home for the homeless. Now, how many areas? I mean, we should have. This is unbelievable. They're already getting $75 from every deed that filed if you're not living in that property. That's been going on for years, and that's to be a home for the homeless. Now we're going to come in with Measure A, so we all this money. This is like propaganda. It's like building on the backs of people's sympathy for people that are homeless, and we're still seeing the problem that's getting greater. Something is so wrong with this. Folks, please, make sure, if you're interested in wanting to know how you should cast your vote, please go to H like house, J like John, T like Tom, A like Apple, hjta.org, where you can get a clear understanding, not mumbo jumbo, not confusion, like you see in these quick reference guide, where you think you're voting for something when you say yes and you're voting against it. It's time for this trickery to go, and I'm just pleased and happy to know that we have an organization that's putting it in simple language that you can understand and cast your vote in the right way. Keith, do you want to read what's on the board?
Okay. It says, Dr. Rosie, can you and your guests share your insights on the fact that almost 50% of the homeowners in the most recent hurricane in Florida had no homeowners insurance? They called it self-insurance. Could this be the future in California? And that's coming in from Jessica.
Wow, that's a scary question. Imagine having to come up with the money yourself to fix your house from the ground up if you lost it in a disaster or a fire or an earthquake. That self-insurance is an option, but it's very expensive. So I don't know how many people would be able to do that. But certainly if the insurance companies leave California, then people are going to be forced to find ways to do that.
Well, yeah.
A lot of people. Go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the finances and insurance companies, but it's not just here.
No.
It's not just here. So, yeah. But do you think that's possible in California? Because, like Dr. Rosie was saying, you have all kinds of insurance companies leaving California right now.
Yeah.
Well, it's a real problem, and it would be nice if the legislature would hold a special session and do something about it. But one of the problems is the way they have run a lot of different policies. They've caused more fires to happen. And they like to blame climate change, but a lot of it is that there are homeless encampments in brushy areas, and there are a lot of fires that are started in that way, and the insurance companies are responsible for all the damage from all these fires. And another thing that's happened is inflation has pushed up the cost of building materials, pushed up the cost of car repair. More sophisticated cars have pushed up the cost of car insurance because it's more expensive to fix them. They're totaled more easily. And that has pushed up the price of car insurance. So all of it, there are many different factors in there. But one thing that doesn't help is to have a California insurance commissioner just flat out tell these companies they can't ever raise rates, and then they wind up leaving. So that's kind of what has happened. And as an elected position, the insurance commissioner always wants to please the voters. It pleases the voters to say, I'm going to stop these rate hikes, but if you don't let the rates go up and the market work, then they leave the state. So some of it is that, and we have to find the right balance on this.
It seems like we have third graders running this country. I'm just saying.
Yeah, as Dr. J says, to be an American is to be an economic slave.
Why?
Wow.
Well, insurance is expensive, that's for sure, and we're just seeing giant increases. It'll hurt your neck when you open these bills. It's really bad.
Let me ask you a question: Should the voters just boycott all these propositions for like a year or two until the state gets its act together?
You should vote no. You should vote no and make sure they don't pass, because
exactly.
If you boycott and they pass, you haven't accomplished anything. I think everybody should vote.
So I'm saying boycott, just vote no, just downvote every proposition until they get their act together, because you can't trust any of them.
I think that's right, except I would vote yes on Proposition 36. And Proposition 36 is the one that fixes the problems in Proposition 47 from 10 years ago.
Okay.
So yes on 36. But I'd feel comfortable voting no on everything else.
Okay. That simplifies things.
Susan,
that certainly does make it easy. Yes on 36 and no on everything else.
Everything else.
What about 33, Susan?
Proposition 33 is very dangerous. That would unleash rent control at the local level with no restrictions on it at all. Currently in California, we have a 1995 law called the Costa-Hawkins Rental Housing Act. And the Costa-Hawkins Act protects property owners from unreasonable rent control. For example,
Wait, Susan, hold 1 second. 1 second.
Okay.
Caller, we're coming to you as soon as this question get answered. So don't go away. Hold on. We're coming to you. Okay.
Okay, so Prop 33 would repeal this 1995 law that limits local rent control. So if it passes, then we would be able to have rent control on single-family homes and on condos and townhouses. So if you own a house and you rent it for income, all of a sudden your local government could put rent control on that, and you might have a tenant for life at a very low rent, and you might not be able to afford to make your payments on that house and pay all the insurance and the rest of it because you can't raise the rent.
Going up. Look at your taxes.
Exactly.
The taxes going up can make it so, can put you in a deficit and you can't raise the rent.
Exactly. So if you own a duplex and you rent one unit or any kind of rental property at all, if we lose the Costa-Hawkins Act, then local governments could put rent control on those properties, which currently they are not allowed to do. So what Prop 33 does is allow these local governments to put in crazy high, difficult rent control, and that will mean that people will stop renting their properties because you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're going to be forced to lose money forever, because who can afford that? So that means we'll see less available rental housing. Now, what this does, this itself is not a rent control measure. This is similar to Prop 5 in that way. This is an engine for rent control. And it will stop construction projects of new housing. And I'll tell you how that would happen. Let's say you're trying to get a construction loan to build a beautiful new apartment building in Berkeley, California. And all of a sudden, here comes some candidate running for city council saying, landlords are terrible and rents are too high, and I'm going to support rent control that only allows a 1% increase no matter what inflation does, no matter what insurance costs do, will only allow a 1% rent increase. Well, let's say you're a lender and you're looking at doing a 30-year loan to construct an apartment building. You're going to say, we're one election away from 3 more people with that view getting elected to the Berkeley City Council, and this building's going to go into foreclosure because no one's going to be able to afford to pay the bills on it. And so for that reason, that building will not be built. And you'll never see that happen. It's not going to be public that it happens, but these are the conditions that create that decision-making process. You have to have some limits on rent control or nobody will build rental housing. And so Prop 33 will destroy the housing supply. And that's very dangerous. So no on 33. It unleashes radical rent control, and it will wreck the housing industry.
Wow. But when you read it in this booklet, Susan, when you read the yes, it almost makes you think, oh, yeah, this is where it should go. That's why it is so tricky. I'm going to stop here and take a few calls, and we're going to come back. Caller, go ahead, open your mic, and tell us your name, where you're calling from, and give us your question. I think we have someone from 626. I believe we have. Okay, caller, if you're there and you've been holding on, go ahead, unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay, maybe the question, that's okay, they hung up. Okay, well, please call back. So, Susan, can you dive into that? Well, I think you went through it well enough, because I think they're going to really be tricked with this one, with this 33.
With Prop 33, yeah. Well, the thing about rent control that's so seductive is that it sounds great. It sounds like it's going to protect tenants from rent increases that they can't afford, which is great for the tenants who are in the apartments today. But what about the people a year from now who want to rent an apartment? There will be fewer available. There will be no new construction. This is the problem. We currently have some limits on rent control laws, and Prop 33 takes those limits away, and that means that you're going to have fewer apartments every time. The Rent Corporation has studied this and published these studies over the years. Rent control always results in fewer apartments. It always results in fewer apartments, and the reason for that is housing is a business. A lot of people want to say, oh, housing is a human right, but it's also a business. And why would you be in that business if the government is going to force you to lose money? You wouldn't be.
Absolutely. Okay, let's take a call. Caller, you're back. Go ahead. Open your mic. Give us your name, where you calling from.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good morning, Rosie.
Good morning, Lee.
Lynn.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, and good morning to your guests. This is an excellent program, and I love how you demand that people actually do what you say to do. Prop 254 USA, all this is a bunch of crap. As the brother said, I vote no, up and down the line, any tax increase for anything, because they have enough sucking our blood, wasting our money. They have a $20 billion, they're at $68 billion deficit in the state. They're trying to make it up on our backs. $20 billion from the COVID federal loan they have to pay back. $30 billion from the unemployment system due to fraud. The lady that was running the program got a promotion to the Biden's
Department
cabinet.
of Labor, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how do you do that?
Because she did a good job. She did a good job.
Yeah, $30 billion lost on her watch. I mean, you put it very, very lightly that this is a system being run by kindergartners. This is just complete, total mismanagement with a bunch of inept, insane people, and we're going down the tubes. Everybody listen to this lady. Vote no up and down the ballot. I vote no on any tax increase. I've had it. Use the money you have or you get no more. That's why we just keep voting yes on this stuff, and because they sugarcoat it, it makes me want to vomit when I look at these commercials, and it's always the school teachers, the firefighters, just like your guest said. Vote no on all of this stuff. Excellent program. I'm out.
Thank you so much.
And we're going to make sure this show goes up on YouTube, that you'll be able to send all your friends and relatives so they can listen and get a good understanding, because this is making no sense at all. You want to add, you already have the Proposition 19 that's choking people to death. Now you want to come up with local U.S. and add something else to their tax. I mean, come on, you're going to tax people out that they won't be able to stay in their home? And if they leave it to their children, they can't keep it. What are you trying to do? Do you want more homelessness? I don't get it. I don't get it. Folks, we better stand up. Back to my guest.
Well, I want to tell you about one more that's on the ballot that doesn't quite look like what it's something different than what it looks like, and this is Proposition 6. Now, Proposition 6 says that it's going to end slavery and involuntary servitude in California. But what it actually does, I mean, we don't really have slavery and involuntary servitude in 2024 in California, and if we do, we should probably send the police over to do something about it. Yeah. So what does this do? This says that prison inmates cannot be required to work at jobs as part of their sentence. Currently, about 1/3 of state prison inmates do jobs in the prison, like laundry and cleaning and cooking and things related to running the prison. And if Prop 6 passes, then they could not be required to do that work, and they would have to be paid to do that work, something like possibly as high as minimum wage, depending on court decisions. And if that happens, it's going to cost taxpayers literally billions of dollars. That's according to the Senate Appropriations Committee. That's not according to me. That's the Senate Appropriations Committee when they were considering this measure, which the legislature voted to put on the ballot. So if there are court decisions, if we take the language out of the Constitution, which is what Prop 6 does, it takes out the language that says involuntary servitude is prohibited except as punishment for crime, the exception would be deleted. So it just says prohibited. So prison inmates could not be required to work, so the prison would either have to pay them enough to persuade them to work or bring in people from outside to do all of those jobs. And if you take that language out, a bunch of court decisions that say prison inmates are not employees under the state labor code, those decisions all go away because you've taken out the part of the Constitution that they were based on. And that means that you could have a situation where prison inmates join a union, work for minimum wage, get various benefits under the labor laws. And that's great. That's going to cost billions and billions of dollars to run the prisons over what we're already paying if that happens. Why are we doing that?
Well, Susan, let's look at this. I was thinking about that one too. It's really that thing needs to be totally overhauled because, number one, there's a lot of people out here could have jobs if they wasn't allowing the prison to work for these corporations for nothing, and in prison 30 years and come out, don't have Social Security, no kind of benefit, no disability, nothing. That whole thing, I'm telling the public, need to come out. It need to be redefined. It really does.
Well, they shouldn't be working and taking jobs away from people on the outside. That shouldn't be happening.
Right. That would make the economy. That would make the economy better. So, what's your take on that? And if you read it, folks, you're gonna be really confused. I'm looking at it right now. When you're looking at I'm telling you how they make this. When you think you're voting for something, you're voting against it. They keep doing this over and over again. It doesn't make sense. They do it on purpose. So, Susan, what's your best guess for this one?
Well, I'm saying no on Prop 6 because they're trying to pretend it doesn't cost anything, and it's going to cost taxpayers potentially billions of dollars a year forever. And it's the county jails and the state prisons, so it costs at the local level and it costs at the state level. And they're not being honest about that because they're pretending that the court decisions will stay the same, and the court decisions will not stay the same. So it's going to be very expensive. And so I don't think they're being honest about that. So I'm a no on Prop 6.
So right now, when the inmates who are actually cooking, who are actually doing the laundry, who are doing the cleaning, who are actually doing that type of work, it is saying if you take that away, then they don't have to do that. So they can just be there, kick back, and do nothing while they're serving their time. And we're paying for it, and yet you're paying somebody to come in to clean up behind them, to clean the building, to do the cooking. That's a big thing. That is a big thing. They're already paying enough. How much they say it costs a year for one inmate with the salaries and everything? I think isn't it about $125,000, Keith?
I think so. I think I heard about 132 maybe.
Wow.
132,000 a year for each inmate.
I didn't know it got that high. The last I heard it was like 75 or 80,000. It's gotten that high. Huh?
Well, see, you got to look at the staff, plus you got to look at everything else that goes into the feeding, inflation. So maybe it'll come down to the fact we need to look at the whole thing. Hell, probably a third of them in there don't need to be in there anyway. Let them on out so they can get jobs.
It's more like
revamp the whole thing.
More like 2/3 don't need to be in there. But
so let's get rid of since it's such a big business, since it is the new slave ship that does not sail. I'm gonna say it again. The prison industrial complex is the new slave ship.
Yeah, and
the ship that does not sail. So when you do the right thing. When you do the right thing, let these people out and they can get out and get jobs, go to school, do what you're supposed to, rehabilitate them, put training into the system so we can build a decent economy and a more safer place for us to live, because the people can come out and have skills to get a job versus knocking us in the head so they can go. I'm about to get mad up in here. Y'all feel me? Y'all feeling me right now, right? Yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
I mean, you can pay $1,500 to $2,000 a month to support people coming in over the border under the TPS program, but you can't do that for prisoners. Your own people that are in prison, it probably shouldn't be there to rehabilitate them. Doesn't make sense to me at all.
Wow. No, you're exactly right.
And some of the people like the Arends coming from Venezuela are even worse than the people that are already in there. So I don't get it.
Well, you're right, and Prop 6 doesn't fix any of that. Prop 6 just sticks it to the taxpayers.
Yeah.
It doesn't help anybody.
Tax, Susan. How are we going to tax to death? You have to pay tax on. If you die, you're going to have to pay tax for dying. They're going to tax you for dying. You better live.
Yeah, we got to take a moratorium on a lot of these props. Okay, other than the ones coming to fix things. We're gonna, voters are going to say if it doesn't fix what's already wrong, go ahead and get rid of it. Something new? No, until you actually qualify it. Like, come to the people like you do for everything else. Hey, you got to talk to us and tell us why you really need this. Okay, instead of
But
just
look,
putting it on a ballot. Yeah, go ahead.
Keith, read
Hmm?
what's on the board, and then my next question is, who's benefiting from all this bullshit?
Cui bono, huh? Cui bono. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, well, you know, the people who benefit are the people who are powerful in Sacramento, and in some cases that's union leaders, and in some cases that's trial lawyers, and in some cases it's consultants who do politics in Sacramento. They make a lot of money arguing this side and then turning around and arguing that side. And there are a lot of people who just make money on this sort of a political industrial complex. And the trouble with it is that the state's not running well.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up in Chicago, and in Chicago they used to say, we don't care if it's a corrupt government because the potholes always get fixed. You just pick up the phone, you call your city representative, and your pothole is fixed the next day. So people didn't care if there was graft, and they didn't care if there was corruption. And the city, they used to call it the city that works, the city that runs. Everybody was happy with their corrupt government that fixed the potholes. Well, in California, we only have the corruption. We still have the potholes. So this is not a good deal for us.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay, the misleading language does make sense if you understand that the authors are criminals. That's what
Oh, my goodness.
but
Exactly.
this is the same thing going on the federal level, okay? With these propositions and these taxes, right? What it is just charging credit card more. In other words, you have a problem, okay? You don't have the money, you don't want to fix the problem or go through the necessary things to actually fix the problem. It's easy to put on another tax, put in more credit on the credit card, and then kick the can down the road. Okay?
You're so right. You're so right about that. And then when people in the United States need something, it's, we don't have the money. And when people in Ukraine need something, it's like, hey, the sky's the limit. There's something just wrong with that. We're borrowing money to bail out other people instead of our own people, and there's something just wrong with that.
The thing is, you spend $200 or $300 million to bring, like in Springfield, Ohio, actually estimated, it cost them, like the federal government, like $300 million a year just to put those 20,000 immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, right? The thing is that how come you just can't release your prisoners, spend that money on them that are already citizens, that already been trained to be here, okay? Like, so why do you have all these
for petty stuff?
Why are you always
up there for petty stuff?
Right,
We're gonna pay
$130,000
a year, $130,000 a year to house someone who stole a thing of baloney. That is crazy.
Instead of paying him $20,000 a year for 2 years to get him back on his feet and become a taxpayer, it doesn't make sense. It's not making sense. Yeah.
And all the kids in the foster system who are aging out, they should be supported. They should have some help from all of our tax dollars. And all the people who are homeless on the street should get the medical care that they need, and not just be shoved from here to there.
Exactly.
And waiting for the apartment buildings that are never going to happen at $800,000 a unit, because there's never going to be enough money to build them that way.
Now you can build a house, Susan, for $800,000. And
yes, you can.
I mean, I'm back to third grade. Let me go ahead.
People don't like it. Okay, people don't like it. But the thing is, the manufactured tiny homes that can house one or two people, okay, 800 square feet per, you don't like it, but the thing is, it costs about $15,000 to $20,000 to just bring it over, assemble it, and put it together. All you need to do is hook it up to your city waste system and your electricity. Okay, you can do it.
But that's why they're running out of money, Keith. That's why they will run out of money before they fix this homeless problem, because they're paying too much to build these houses, and they're not building them at affordable rent in the neighborhood. If you want to build a house, affordable housing, in Beverly Hills would be one price, in Watts would be another. Right. You can't build a house in Watts or South Central and charge the rate that you would charge in Beverly Hills or some other place. None of this is making sense. And one day I hope while I'm here that the people rise up somehow and say enough is enough. We're not going to do this because it is not looking good for the next generation.
The thing is,
Yeah.
that, it's just probably have to have her come back on one day because it's really the banks and Wall Street that are actually making money off of this housing stuff, right? They're the ones why the rent's
Hmm.
so high because they're buying. I mean, they're buying mobile home parks, okay? Uh, Buying up mobile home parks and raising up the prices for people to live in mobile home parks. That's the cheapest kind of living that you probably can have right now. So it's getting to the point where, like the Klaus Schwab says, you will own nothing and be happy. Okay, that's the way it's. Everything's we're gonna be a renter economy where everybody's
That's what I
renting.
said,
Yeah.
Susan, at the state capitol the other year.
Mm-hmm.
Are we turning
Hmm.
into a
Yeah.
rental state? Well, you
Yeah.
can't pass down. You can't leave your rented apartment to your children. What do
Mm-hmm.
you want for the next generation? I mean, these
Yeah.
kids right now, my heart just goes out for someone who graduates from college, cannot
Mm-hmm.
move out.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest travesty, I can see you spending all this money, but
Mm-hmm.
yet you have young people who have gone to college
Mm-hmm.
and the jobs are not available because you're sending the work to the prison, but yet you won't forgive
Yeah.
these school loans. Now they can't even buy a house.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
it's
then
too
and,
much
and,
wrong
and,
right
and
now.
and then you import 10 million people, okay? And then the
Right.
housing problems gets even worse. And then you spend money on them. You spend money on wars. Now you have to spend more money to police these people that haven't been trained to be in the society. So it's getting. I don't know. It seems like this is the
But
Marx
Keith,
Brothers. Okay.
it's the young
It's
people.
it's one of the Marxists, but I don't think it's Groucho.
Not Groucho.
Yeah, but it's the young people, you all. It's the young people
Yeah.
that they have a yoke around their neck. When they can't buy
Well,
a house and
Well,
you
rent
know,
is as high
what
it
the,
is because of a school loan.
Dr. Yossi, there's two things, right? It's the young people that put the yoke around their neck, but they're putting all the old folks on the street, okay, at the same time. With
We're
it's
gonna
not
rise up.
working.
these prices.
And you know, we
Go ahead.
we could go back to the policy we had after World War II when all those GIs came back and all those households were formed when they got married and started
Right.
having kids. And we had a housing policy where they were just building out suburbs and they had financing for the GIs so they could buy houses and the government guaranteed the loans and that worked really well and houses were built in huge numbers. And that's the way we should do it today. But instead, we have environmentalists who block that because they don't want any suburbs. They want everyone to live in apartments on top of the train tracks. And people don't always want to do that at every stage of life. A lot of people want to have a house, and they should be able to get a house. And having policies that make that impossible is unnecessary. It's not saving the planet to not build houses in California. That's silly. That's just nonsense. So we really need better policies so that people can have the life that they deserve to have.
Well, you're not even building apartments that young people can afford to move into.
Right,
That's the
right.
problem. If you could
Right.
do that,
Right.
I'd be much more amenable to it. But they're not even doing that. So none of this is working.
And even if
Right.
you're going to build the apartment, make it where they can own that share of the apartment. Let them be a shareholder like some of these properties they have done. They won't even do that, but they keep messing around. I'm going to organize all these people in the wheelchairs, and we're gonna make a difference. We're gonna have a parade. We're gonna stop this. Somebody got to do it.
I'm going to get you some door hangers. We can all walk our neighborhood.
Wow.
Stop.
I think they're getting
Hey,
delivered
I mean,
today to the Howard Jarvis office. You can just call right over there and get door hangers.
I got
Yeah,
the
you
right
guys-
slogan, right? I got the
Well,
right slogan.
I will be
Big
picking
sign to
up.
stop the pop, okay?
That's right.
Yeah, stop the
And
props, exactly.
I will be picking up some signs you all can put in the yard that has to do with these propositions. I have one of my staff to pick them up, and I need you all to come to the office and get them so you can put them in your yard. Susan, I want you to go down the line, tell us what we need to vote no on and yes, and you guys write this down. You want to go to HJTH, that's House John Tax Apple.org, so you can get a clear understanding about what you need to vote for that's written in plain language. And this show is going to re-air tonight at 6:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You didn't get a chance to listen. You want to. Susan, run down that list again with the no votes and the yes.
Okay, well, the shortcut is no on everything on your ballot except Proposition 36. Vote yes on 36 for public safety, and that's the only one you want to vote yes on. Everything else is no, but specifically no on 2, which is debt, no on 4, which is debt, no on 5, which makes it easier to raise taxes, big no on 5, no on 33, which is rent control unleashed and will result in not enough apartments. No on A, which raises the sales tax in Los Angeles. No on A. And no on U.S., which adds $25 per $100,000 of value to your property tax bill in the LAUSD district. So no on 2, 4, 5, 33, A, U.S. Those are the big ones.
You need to call your friends because you know how they're going to call you. I get people calling me, how are you going to vote? You know, and please don't pay attention to all the stuff you get in the mail from these politicians. They are the ones, many of them, who are crooks in the first place. So don't pay any attention to what they're saying without an understanding. Make sure that you read for yourself and get it from the right source, because we don't know who's being paid to tell you to say yes or no. That's what I said. I'm not taking it back. Because I know that folks get paid. So you guys, we're in a tight economy. So people doing things they wouldn't normally do. So this is about your children because their children are going to be okay. So you guys, our time is up. Miss Susan, would you please come back before election? Can we get you back one more time?
Anytime you say. I'm delighted to do it.
Wow, thank you so much. Keith, thank you. Thank all you all for listening. The show is going to air again at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And tonight at 6:30, you guys, 6:30, hold on to this. You tell all your friends, your self-appointed mayor, Dr. Rosie Milligan, that's who I am around here, along with Consolidated Realtor Board, is hosting a town hall meeting. We are going to discuss some of these issues, but the main thing we're going to talk about on Crenshaw, where the EDD office, they want to turn it into something other than what we need. We want to make sure that we get a message to our governor that we do not want anything there but to bring that EDD office back in an area most needed. I think they want to put some apartment there. We ain't having it. You guys hear what I said? We not. I was including you all. I can't do this by myself. Be at that town hall meeting. There's some things we're going to discuss that I could not put in the announcement because you can't put everything out there in the public. You got some of this is like closed door stuff. So you want to be there tonight at Consolidated Realtor Board. And that's at 6:30. You have a question, call 323-750-3592. 323-750-3592. Okay, you guys have a great day. Susan, again, thank you. Is there a parting word you want to say to us, Susan, as we go off the air?
I just want to say thank you so much for all your great work, Dr. Rosie. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Keith. You guys have a great day as you go on your way. Call everybody and tell them it's no. You know how the little child do when they 2 years old? Everything you ask them, what do they say? No. Do the child's vote. No. Okay? Have